Come by chance refinery owner charged over explosion that killed a worker in 2022. Owner of the Edmonton Oilers asked the city to clear the area around their arena of unhoused people. 2 cops shot each other, and 6 years later, neither was charged. The Jewish National Fund to lose charitable status over funding Israel's military, and more than 150 people are dead in protests in Bangladesh. Good morning. It's Friday, July 26th. It's Friday. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. First, let's start in Come By Chance, where 2 companies have been charged in relation to a fatal fire in 2022 at the Come By Chance refinery. The fire seriously injured 8 workers and killed Sean Peddle, who was 47 at the time. He died 6 weeks later in hospital. CBC's Rob Antle reports that Brea Renewable Fuels Newfoundland GP Incorporated faces 11 charges. They own the refinery, and the charges include, quote, failure to provide and maintain the necessary equipment, systems, and tools to ensure a safe workplace, and failure to ensure safe work procedures were followed, unquote. The other company charged was Laurinville Mechanical Contractors Limited. They faced 3 charges, including failing to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of their workers. The workers at the refinery are represented by the United Steelworkers. They want an inquiry, and they want to see the owner of the refinery given a prison sentence. Next, the company that owns the Edmonton Oilers put pressure on the city of Edmonton to clear encampments, a water station, and a, quote, native healing ground, unquote, from near the properties that it owns. This is revealed by Freedom of Information requests obtained by Ewan Thompson and his blog Drug Data Decoded. The leadership of OEG, the owner of the Edmonton Oilers, told the city that they were worried that the hockey fans might have to see people living on the street. Here's what their email said. They were, quote, deeply concerned that the people attending will not feel safe and the images being broadcast out to the sports world will not leave Edmonton and Alberta in a positive light, unquote. The attending they were talking about was attending the 2023 NHL playoffs, not the 2024 NHL playoffs, just to make sure that we've got our timelines right here. The area of town that the owners were targeting is the Boyle-McCauley neighborhood, which is near the Ice District where the Oilers play, and bars have popped up to support the team's economy. I've had the chance to spend a bit of time in the Boyle-McCauley neighborhood, and it is stunning how the Oilers have really pushed poverty out as far as they can. OEG execs made 4 requests for more cops around their venues, and they asked for the water station that was near something called the Fan Park to be moved so that unhoused people wouldn't be drawn to the park by the promise of water. One of the victims of the team was the Boyle Street Community Services. They had been leasing its space from OEG for $1 per month after they sold their building to OEG in 2021. OEG also promised millions in donations for the King Thunderbird Center, a project proposed by Boyle. OEG is now trying to use a lawsuit to avoid paying the money that they had promised. But in September 2023, the center vacated its facility. Another major player in Edmonton, the Katz Group, was found to have had a relationship with Edmonton police that allowed them to enter uninvited on its properties to ticket and arrest people on behalf of the Katz Group. Next, to the conclusion of a bizarre story from Niagara Falls and an answer to the age-old riddle, if 2 cops shoot each other, who is found at fault? The answer to the riddle is no one. Back in 2018, Shane Donovan and Nathan Parker were investigating a car crash near Niagara Falls. Samantha Beatty from CBC News describes what happened like this. Parker was directing traffic, but left to use the bathroom. When he came back, Donovan, quote unquote, confronted him about what it doesn't say. It kind of sounds like maybe he was being confronted over the fact that he went to the bathroom, but we don't know. After the confrontation, they started to fight. The 2 of them started shooting at each other, 10 shots in total, and Parker survived being shot in the cheek, the nose, the shoulder, thigh, calf, hip, abdomen, and foot. Donovan, you are a lousy shot. Donovan claimed to be firing at Parker in self-defense. The SIU recommended charging Donovan with attempted murder and assault, but because he used the magic words self-defense, the Crown withdrew the charges because they didn't think they could get a conviction. Parker was then charged for assaulting Donovan, but Donovan got a USB key with key evidence on it, which tainted his testimony, which caused Parker's charges to be withdrawn. See how this works? Cops interfere with an investigation and it has to be thrown out. It's very convenient. Donovan was then charged with perjury, which he was acquitted of yesterday. Parker had previously been charged in an unrelated road rage incident where he also had his charges withdrawn. Parker has since retired from the Niagara Police Detachment. Man, you see how it works when you're a cop and you get in trouble for being a violent piece of garbage? Amazing. Why aren't the rest of us so lucky? Well, the rest of us aren't so violent. Next, some good news for you on this Friday morning. CRA plans to revoke the charitable status of the Jewish National Fund. The JNF will be appealing this decision. The decision is due to the fact that the JNF supports military infrastructure in a foreign country, something that, isn't supposed to be what charities do in Canada. The JNF argues that it isn't fair for them to lose status because they were allowed to fund Israel's military 60 years ago, but the rules changed and the JNF should be exempt from the new rules. Some of the JNF's money went to build military infrastructure for the JDF, reports Ari David Blaff with the National Post. Something that the CRA said, quote, ran afoul of Canada's tax code concerning supporting foreign militaries, unquote. I mean, no kidding. Other charities that fund the Israeli military have also lost their charitable status recently, like Beth Oloth Charitable Organization, which lost its status in 2019. And finally to Bangladesh, where protests have accelerated and moved beyond the changes to the quota system that students originally took to the streets over. Mohammed Arafat, the Minister for State Information, defended to Al Jazeera how his government reacted to the protests and blamed them on quote-unquote extremists and terrorists. He said that he isn't calling the students quote, terrorists and anarchists, unquote, but instead a third group of protesters are terrorists and anarchists. More than 150 people have been killed, and his government has been widely condemned for how they've handled the protests. The violence started when members of the Bangladesh Chhatra League attacked protesters. They are the student wing of the party currently in power. The UN has expressed concern over how the government has cracked down on the students. Irene Khan, Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Opinion, called on the government to invite the UN to investigate what happened so that the investigation could be supported by all sides. The students have not said what their next moves are, but have called for 4 cabinet ministers to resign and for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to apologize. Those are your headlines for Friday, July 26th. I'm Nora. Oh man, it's Friday. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's Friday. I hope that you've got something lined up this weekend. I'm doing something super secret and super cool this weekend that I leave today for, and you're not going to hear anything more about it from me other than to say, yeah, it's great. Sometimes stuff happens and you're like, sweet, this is cool. So I should be back on Monday well rested and energized. And next week's the last week of the daily news. It's the last week of the daily news until September, or maybe the last week of August. I haven't decided when I'm going to come back yet. I'll surprise you. I might not wait until September. I might come back just before. So get ready to shift to the new feed. I know you can do it. I know you have it in you. Shift to the new feed, the daily news feed. You can find it pretty much easily now. I've been checking around. It is popping up with the New York Times' daily news podcast too. Subscribe to ours. It's better and more Canadian if that's what you're into. And yeah, make that shift really easy for you. And while you're shifting yourself, get your friends involved in listening to the daily news podcast too. It'll change their lives. You are listening to this podcast at sandynora.com on the Real News Network podcast feed. And, anywhere that you get your podcasts and you search the daily news, Nora Loretto, Sandy Nora, and it pops up. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you on the other side.